Things are happening to us today.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, it says receiving our content. That's always the best thing to see. That was such a good idea for them to put messages in like that, so I'm not just like, maybe it's happened.
Is it today? I don't know. Is today the day?
Is it happening? Did it work? It did.
Did the gods of the internet accept my tithe?
Exactly. The Thieves Guild. That has been... It's been on my mind all day.
I just finished watching their video they did just now.
I was so jealous of them being on that, like, together. I was like, oh, because, like, I remember, like, those episodes of the X-Men animated series, because, like, I had such a crush on Gambit.
Who didn't? I got so many tease jokes.
I know. I loved Rogue. I loved Gambit. I loved Storm. Yeah, I was all about it.
Did you see the X-Men Evolution version they did, which was basically based on more or less the same story, where Rogue goes back with Gambit to New Orleans?
No, I didn't.
It was only one episode.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Also, thank you, Red Samurai, already getting the super chats going.
I know. So, okay, so just to go over that really quickly, Red Samurai, Super Chat, Tiff, what are your thoughts on Batman Season 4? Likes, dislike? Well, here's the thing, like, any amount of Batman, the animated series I could get, great, awesome. I will say, the art shift for me really bugged me. Like, even as a kid, I remember being like, this is weird. Especially because, like, when I kind of caught it, it was later on, like, when it was on, like, one of the other channels. So, sometimes it was in sequence and sometimes it wasn't, so that really threw me off, because I feel like, wait, what?
What happened, yeah.
Yeah, not understanding how, like, shows were made and that, like, they could change their animation team entirely. But, yeah, I mean, the fact is, at the end of the day, like, I love the animated series. I love the fact that after it was, like, over and canceled, like, it's kind of what Justice League became in a way. It was like Batman and Friends, and then like so was Justice League Unlimited. You know what I mean? Like, so like any amount of animated series, I'm thankful for, because from it we got more Batman, we got Superman, we got Justice League, we got Justice League Unlimited. I'm like, yes, done it, awesome. I'm in.
It's funny. I think Sal ruined it for me just recently when he said, in the seasons where everyone became a triangle, and I instantly got defensive. Like, that's not true. Then I look at my old sketchbooks from that time. Yeah. I'm like, oh, I drew triangles.
Yeah.
All my people were Thank you, Bruce Timm, and thank you, Sal, for ruining it for me.
I know, later. Right? It just kind of they got a little, lazy.
Everyone was pointy.
Yeah, exactly. I also see in the chat before we start, there's a comment about Doom Patrol. We're going to talk about that. So,
oh, yeah.
Don't you worry. We'll get there. We're totally going to get there.
Prep yourself.
I would, pull out my issue, but it's not even here. It's elsewhere. It's an elsewhere. It's an elsewhere story in which it is in another room. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I guess we should start this show. What do you think?
I guess.
You guess?
I guess. I mean,
suppose.
We could just sit here shooting the breeze and people will never get a show.
Exactly. No.
That's an April Fool's joke. Get everyone in here and just do a pre-show that never ends.
Yeah, exactly. And then they just talked, and it was just a cover, and nobody ever talked about the comics we were supposed to talk about.
They just talked about nothing.
That's right. Hey.
They talked about soybeans. It was weird.
No. I'm not gonna do that. All right, yeah, let's do this week. Once I find the cover, because everything is blocking everything. Hey guys, and welcome to The Poll, the show that comes out each week, and we talk about the comics that came out this week. Unless, of course, we've taken a week off like we did last week, because Joel was, of course, at Fan Expo attending that, so that was awesome. But we're back this week to talk about the comics that came out this week. I'm Tiffany. You can find me at TheRealZoobs on Twitter, and over there is Joel. You can find him at Cape Joel, also on Twitter.
Sure can.
So interestingly enough, like, we have a sort of event that's going on this week. But, like, with the end of Secret Empire, like, there are fewer, like, things coming out simultaneously. And this week, I think we both got to read a little bit more things, just in general. And it felt good. It felt really good, this week's comic load. It wasn't, like, a total wasted week.
Wasn't an avalanche either.
No, it wasn't, and it was just very, I felt very comfortable this week. So why don't we just get right into it and talk about a book that hasn't been on in quite a while, Daredevil. Joel?
Yes. So Daredevil has been awesome recently under Charles Soule. He's done 3 killer arcs in a row. The last one was called Supreme, and it actually involved many classic Daredevil staples coming back to the forefront. He got the red costume back. He became friends with Foggy again. Wilson Fisk the Kingpin stepped up to be the main villain, and oh yeah, he passed a law in the Supreme Court.
Ooh. Before you go any further, though, I want to say thank you so much to the Red Samurai for the super chat there. He says, last super chat, Elseworlds exchange ideas, so pay attention to this, Joel. Create your own Batman animated show on HBO, cast it yourself, and pitch some new episodes.
Noted.
That's kind of cool. I like that, because you could definitely go to the darker spectrum of Batman on that channel in particular. So that would be awesome. All right, so now what's going on with Daredevil?
So the thing that's happening with him right now is they're actually going back to a storyline and that they kind of abandoned for a little bit, and that is Sam Chung, a.k.a. Blind Spot, a.k.a. Daredevil's new, apprentice buddy who he was trying to help out, trying to, guide him through the world of superhero-dom, much like how Stick guided him, only, not nearly as mean or as surly.
Can I just say there's something kind of funny about you keep using the word guide when we're dealing with all these, blind individuals?
Blind people, yeah. I swear I did not mean that, but, it's you have a point there, Tiffany, because it's actually 2 blind people. Blind Spot had to stop being a superhero because a villain called Mosaic ripped his eyes out.
Oh! Yeah, okay. That'll do it.
That'll do it. That's bad. That's not good. That's not great. He broke ties with Daredevil. He went back with his mom to China, and his mom's a big piece of work. She was involved in, a crazy Chinatown cult that got raided by the Hand, but Matt Murdock gets a letter from Sam saying, look, you gotta come to China. You gotta save me. So it's a whole big thing, Matt Murdock having to put off work, having to put off all this other stuff just so he can come to China and save his buddy. And of course he finds out that this is all part of a much bigger plan related to the Hand to try and kill him. And the mysterious man in black that he's been fighting is none other than Sam, who's now possessing some crazy White Walker blue eyes he's got now.
All right, so he must have, much like in Minority Report, just pop him in. It's cool. It's
just like that. Oh, and the chat is correcting me. It was Muse, not Mosaic. I was close. He was an art-themed villain. It was close. Mosaic's the Inhuman who can jump into people.
Yes, exactly. Muse, I mean, that the name alone. I mean, I could see.
Yeah.
I could see. That confusion there. So totally fine. But all right, so he's got crazy blue eyes now, and
yep,
he's just we're just gonna see where this goes now. It's all been some sort of great betrayal. Do you think they have something over him, or? Oh
yeah, certainly. I mean, it's clearly one of those. Hey, we can bring people back from the dead. Surely we can bring your eyes back if only, you join us on the dark side and everything.
It's very specific.
Incredibly specific.
Bringing people back from the dead, in my opinion, not that I have a lot of experience doing that, is that's like...
come now.
Right. It's often a very spiritual or magical thing. Bringing back your eyes, that just sounds like you could just, science... I don't know. Science could probably take care of that for you. At this point, in this day and age, with all the crazy super scientists they have in the world, I'm just saying.
Look, hand ninjas. I got the gout and I got it real bad. Can you crush up some dragon bones into something? Can you cure my gout?
They're like, you could just go to the doctor and see what they could do for you. That's just
but I want ninja magic though. Come on.
I want to be able to say that I once was cured by ninja magic.
Just once in my lifetime.
Exactly. So overall, I know Daredevil, you have a soft spot for him.
Yeah.
How does this feel to you right now? Are you digging this where it's going? Are you kind of all right, whatever?
Charles Soule has been on a tear recently of just, delivering great arc after great arc, and it feels like if anyone who kind of got turned off on Daredevil when everything started, where it's like, oh, no one knows who he is anymore, and oh, he's in a black costume, and oh, this doesn't feel like the Daredevil I remember, it's back to feeling like the Daredevil that you remember. This is very much back to basics in a great way, and with a twist on it, too. I'm a big fan, and plenty of writers have done this, where it's like, let's take Daredevil out of his element. Let's take him out of New York and see how he does overseas. And I kind of dig this, him just like running around the forests of Kowloon and shit, getting chased by ninjas.
That's kind of cool. I mean, I'm sure it sort of helps that sort of transition, especially within like the business corporate sense that in the Defender show he was back in the red costume.
Yeah.
Whether or not it's exactly the same, that's another issue. But at least he was back there, so I think it was probably an easier sell to be like, can we put him back? Can we just?
Can I also mention, too, I think it's funny that, in this era of, generations and legacies and all this other stuff, and like, hey, we're going back to basics. We're, doing what people yelled at us about online. It's funny. Daredevil went back to his red costume, went back to all this stuff. He got no buzz about this. No one is talking about this besides me right now. And I think that's such a shame where it's like, wow, I hope this does not bode well for the rest of the relaunch that you're doing here, that he did it even before Legacy and no one's talking about it.
Right. And again, it could come down to the fact that, like, Matt has changed a couple of times, though, right? So, I mean, it could just easily be they're like, yeah, okay, whatever. Matt went back to the red costume, sure, whatever. Until he goes back to the black one. Like, until something happens. It needs to be emo again. Except I know that's not really it, but I always associate that kind of shift.
No, that's fair. No, he's had some very emo years, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's very true. All right, so that was Daredevil. Again, Joel is recommending this, I would say, especially, I guess, in light of the changes that are coming to Marvel. I feel like you've kind of indicated that this has been a fairly consistent book.
Oh, yeah.
For quite a while, and their team's not changing anytime soon, or that we know of. So I think it's just one of those things where it's like, if you're just looking for a strong story, not a bad place to start. In terms
Not
of
bad at all. And it's also a pretty good jumping on point, too, because they get you up to speed on everything that's happening with Sam. They get you up to speed on everything that happened with the law that Matt Murdock just passed, his new role as a DEA, or not DA, sorry. I always put the extra E in there. He's not a drug enforcement agent. He's just a district attorney.
It'd be a very different book.
Hey, I'd read that. I'd read about Matt Murdock, DEA agent.
He's like the greatest agent ever. They don't even need the dogs anymore. He can just smell it.
See, he's man, why is he a lawyer? Matt Murdock is in the wrong line of work. He should be sniffing out drugs and bombs at the airport.
Exactly.
That guy's got it. That guy doesn't. That guy's got it.
Right. And can I just say, like, this is kind of a sort of tangent, which you don't really get a lot on this show in general, but you mentioned Marvel in terms of jumping on points. I don't know if you noticed this week, there was a book that came out. I didn't pick it up, but it was Thor and Hulk. And
yes,
it indicated in its summary that this was a good place to jump on, which I was like, and
is it though?
I don't know. But
Hulk is dead and Thor is unworthy, and judging by the cover, one is alive and one has the hammer. So.
I know from the preview pages that I saw, they were both in spacesuits, and like the idea behind it is it's very much like I think like a contest between the two of them to see who's the greater warrior, and I don't know if it's just something leading up to the movie that's going to be coming out for Thor. But it was just funny to see them put it there. I was like, wow, you literally were just like, no, this is where you start. If you want to start with either of these characters, this is it. I was like, really?
Yeah, seems like an odd choice.
Yeah.
Heck, I didn't even know it was coming out if I didn't either A, pass it on the shelf or in digital, or if you didn't bring it up to me right now.
Exactly. But anyway, let's move away from Marvel for just a moment, and I'm going to talk about Doom Patrol number 8.
Please do.
This is not a surprise or a secret or anything like that. I do work with DC fans, and this is like Doom Patrol is my book, so I have been reading it since issue 1 to now issue 8 after they did
early, in fact.
Yeah, exactly. I get to read them a little bit early. But they, this is a book that takes a season break, which I think for people who aren't reading indie books, they're not necessarily used to that. So some people I think thought it was canceled after issue 6 because it just stopped.
Yeah, lots of people did. Yeah.
But this issue, we're kind of getting back to brass tacks of the main Doom Patrol storyline, where we're seeing a lot of like the team functioning together, many of them living within Dannyland, of course the ambulance that has like a theme park within it, dealing with the fact that Danny sustained injuries from their last adventure, and like they're having a difficult time healing him essentially. He needs happiness, which he gets from the people he's created within him, but he also needs to be close to Casey, who was one of the people he created and then used a significant portion of his power to bring to life, to reality. So like he basically took this like imaginary character and then brought it into the real world. So he needs to be close to her in order to, you know, regenerate.
It's all very metaphysical.
It is. But of course, like, anytime, in my opinion, you're reading Doom Patrol, you're not just reading, like, a superhero, like, you know, weird, strange, action-packed, like, issue. You're also reading a book that has a lot of, like, depth to it. It's there if you want it, and if you don't, that's fine. But, like, in this book in particular, we end up talking about the fact that it's like, what makes a person real? Like, is Casey real? Because a lot of people, like, are acting, they're like, well, I mean, technically you were just created. And she's like, but I'm a person, and I have thoughts and feelings and ideas, and, like, this whole, like, question as to, like, is she a real person? She ends up going back to her apartment where she runs into her cat who had been missing. Now, if you've been reading the book, the cat went missing, ran into a random spaceman. And when I say spaceman, I mean what your mind's eye thinks of when they think of a spaceman, like spacesuit, can't see who it is, big white, everything.
Major Tom, ground control type.
Yeah, exactly. And the space person, I should say, turned Lotion into a cat man. And
okay.
When I say a cat man, I mean an anthropomorphic cat.
A tabaxi, if you know your D&D.
Exactly. Or as many people are referring to, a furry. Because it's just a person who's a cat. He returns. He's very much just like, yeah, no, I'm back. I need a place to stay. He can talk. She gives him a place to stay. And inevitably, we end up seeing them developing a relationship beyond their old one, where like they like kiss and then presumably sleep together.
Oh. Well, I'll be.
So we got that going on. We got the fact that over in Dannyland, you know the Negative Man?
Yes,
so Negative Man's a guy. He has a negative entity within him. In order to release the negative entity, he sleeps. Like, he'll go to sleep and the negative entity comes out, and that's how he does all his, you know, powers and such. Yeah, exactly. But he's also a scientist. And Larry Trader, who's the Negative Man, has just decided he wants to sleep most of the time because he's dealing with a lot of stuff in his head, essentially. And when he sleeps, he goes into, like, a dream world where, like, it's like he's living either his actual life or an idealized version of his life, had he not...
Cosmic.
Yeah, exactly. So everyone's kind of, like, concerned about that. They're like, he's kind of sleeping, like, all the time. And that can't be good. And the negative entity named Klieg is like, yeah, no, listen, here's the thing. He only wants you to wake him up for, like, meals and, like, when his favorite TV show is on.
Hey, that's not a bad deal. I mean...
So essentially, that's what they've got going on. Crazy Jane is, of course, dealing with the fact that she had a murderous, crazy, controlling personality that was born out of the trauma that she experienced, you know, a while back, that has been finally exorcised from her being, and she just wants to make sure it's gone. And then by the end of this, there's a crazy diet food, because the first... like, arc had to do with food, and now this one is also mentioning food.
Interesting.
Right? Where, like, there's this diet, like, powder that, like, makes everything taste great, but it'll help you lose weight or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, sure. And, like, makes you turn inside out or, like, control... I don't know what they're going to do with this.
It's made of ghosts or something.
Exactly. It's made of you somehow. You're just eating yourself. But, by the end, there's, like, 2 giant robots that show up. Because, like... yes, this is a superhero book, and, like, that's what I love about it, is that, like, you have all these, like, ridiculous high concepts, but then it's like, and now we're gonna fight robots. And not just, like, Robot Man, because he's also there, of course, but, like, different robots from space or wherever. And I'm like...
space bots.
I love how much there is to this book, because, like, it's like there's weirdly something for everyone. It has, like, a good, like, tongue-in-cheek style humor to it. And like I said, like, there is something, like, there's certain depth to it, essentially, but, like, it's there if you want to explore it, and if you don't, you can just enjoy the book. You know,
sounds
like,
ultra meaty.
Yeah, it really is. So there you go. That's Doom Patrol number 8. I really do highly recommend it. It just came back from its break. And honestly, yes, you could pick up Doom Patrol number 7, but that was like this weird, like, in-between issue where it was just a solitary issue that kind of just had a beginning, middle, and end to, like, a specific story about a character. Mm-hmm. And then with this is just kind of the start of a new arc. So,
Right.
so you could kind of pick it up here. You might be a little confused, but you can go check out some stuff that I did where I talked about everything else that happened. So you'll catch up. It'll be fine. But it's a good book. I think it's a solid book, and it's my favorite of the Young Animal line. I think they're doing a great job. And it's funny, every time I think of that fact, I'm like, the guy who wrote this is the My Chemical Romance guy.
That guy. It's hard to believe, right?
It's like, right, yeah.
From the Black Parade to Young Animal.
He also did Umbrella Academy, but...
That's right.
It's still so bizarre. Still, I'm like, oh yeah.
And apparently he's great friends with Grant Morrison, which is how he got this to happen and how he got the blessing. There's a great interview out there where he interviews Grant Morrison.
Oh, that's got to be kind of amazing.
It's nuts. It's also like I'm not nearly high enough to enjoy this on all the proper levels. All right.
Well, see, you get rewatchability there. You can watch it the first time totally fine, and then, later on, you're like, okay, but now I'm going to really get the subtext to this interview.
I'm pretty sure that interview, too, if you play it backwards, it syncs up with Dark Side of the Moon. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure.
Right. It also might release the Cthulhu, so don't do that.
So watch out.
Yeah. So let's move back to Marvel and talk about one of the Generations books that came out this week, Iron Man, which Joel was giving me a little bit of preview for.
I felt like I needed to, where it's like, Tiff, don't skip this one. I know it looks like one you can skip.
I didn't pick it up yet, but I can't wait to hear about it because it's like what you told me. It's like literally everyone remembered like a character existed and had relationships with other characters, and I'm like, yes, I know. Thank you. Yeah. But go ahead.
All right, so by now I think we all know the basic setup of the Marvel Generations books. Young hero wakes up at some point in time, does not know how they got there, meets a younger counterpart of their mentor and or progenitor character. They fight a baddie, learn a lesson, and then get sent back, with renewed vigor or a new mission statement or a new something.
Yes.
Leave it to Brian Michael Bendis to flip that fucking script the second he got it, because this one goes in a ton of different directions.
Before we go into those directions, I want to say thank you so much to Mr. Giggles for the super chat. He says, Joel, can you do a comic smack high as... Well, also, hey guys.
The answer to that, Giggles, is yes, but it's difficult. But yes, so Marvel Generations, the art on this is interesting. This is Marco Ruby who's doing this. Not to be confused with politician Marco Rubio. This is the guy who does does like a bunch of different styles. That's his thing. In fact, I had assumed this book had a bunch of different fill-in artists. No, it's one guy who just works in multimedia.
That's cool.
So like every 5 pages, the art changes and becomes something different.
That's awesome.
Yeah. The thing about this book is that, unlike all the other heroes, Riri Ironheart did not find herself in the past.
Oh.
She found herself in the far-flung future.
Okay.
But not just any far-flung future. This is a far-flung future wherein basically the human race is better than it's ever been before. It's a brand new golden age. The Avengers team is Avengers Next. That's the actual children of the original Avengers. And the Sorcerer Supreme on Earth is Tony Stark.
That's the one thing, like, I've really been enjoying Infamous. That's the one thing where I'm like, you really have to explain to me how this works, because he's such a man of science, and while, yes, Doom has found a way to, like, take science and magic and combine them into something that's fairly powerful, it doesn't strike me as something that Tony Stark would believe in.
Yeah, he's like 100 years old, and he's chatting it up with Riri. Her suit doesn't work in this new future, and he's like, oh, sorry about that. Me and the Avengers, we put up like a new neural defense network and everything around the Earth. It's probably interfering with your suit, but that's okay. I'll just magic you a new one.
Okay,
that does work here.
So wait, he's like full magic at this point? Like, has he abandoned science entirely?
He has a bunch of little Iron Man droids, little helpers, little iron Roombas who help him out. But Riri, ironically, is asking all the same questions you are, and that is going, dude, you were my tech idol. You were, like, one of the smartest, biggest brains on Earth. How could you, like, shuck science for magic? And basically, Tony says, hey, there was a time in my life I was looking for a different challenge. I thought I conquered everything I could in science. And he says something kind of profound. It reminded me of, like, the first Thor movie, where he's like, magic and science are ultimately the same thing in our universe when you break it down. Complex formulas and ins and out and everything. I just traded one discipline for another, and because of it, I became Sorcerer Supreme.
But, see,
It wasn't a great answer, and it's like, I feel you needed to talk more about this, which they couldn't, because the idea is, it's like, you're from the past, I can't tell you too much about the future, that'll ruin the present.
Fine, but, I mean, like, to me, the strength of Strange was that, like, initially he took his, like, dedication to, like, the medical arts and, like, studied and studied and studied and studied, but at the end of the day, it was when, like, he opened his heart to it and, like, fully believed in it that he was able to fully utilize magic. And it feels like Tony being like, no, I just stopped doing
wanted
science.
a new thing.
Yeah, exactly, and did that. Like,
I was bored. I'm a bored rich person, so I wanted a new thing.
I don't know. And again, that could just be the fact that he couldn't fully disclose the story, but I don't know.
Something happened. We know he's hundreds of years old now. Magic has allowed him to live to a ripe old age.
Okay.
Which is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Also, unlike the other issues where it's like, oh, we gotta fight a bad guy, this one had no bad guy to fight. This was literally just Riri and Tony tooling around this new universe and, like, kind of... I feel like Bendis is planting the seeds for a story he will indefinitely tell later.
Right. I could see that. What's funny is you say that there's no villain, right? Because I guess not thinking that they would take her to the future since everyone else has gone to the past. I guess I initially thought what they were going to do was, like, she was going to go back to his, like, demon in a bottle days, and, like, that would be the villain.
That would have been interesting. It's funny, like, there's the cover of it has Tony Stark in an old Iron Man suit.
Right? So, like, I kind of was like, oh, that must be where this story is going. Like, maybe I'll pick it up later. Not anticipating that they would be like, yeah, future magic.
I think the idea is that, like, there's no positive lesson Riri could learn from any older version of Tony Stark. Like, if you went back to Demon in a Bottle, hey, don't drink, kids. If you went back to Civil War 2, hey, don't start stupid wars for stupid reasons, kids.
Right. I mean, like, I guess with the at least with Demon in a Bottle, it's an interesting time. Like, not a positive time, but an interesting time in his life, where you see a very different side of that character, just in general.
What's interesting too is, like, Tony, when he finds out, it's like, oh, you're traveling through time and everything. Ain't my first rodeo. Did I ever tell you about the time I went back and became a knight in King Arthur's court? And Riri's like, only 1,000,000 times.
He didn't really, like, he kind of did. Yeah, all right.
Which I think dovetails very nicely with what's happening in Infamous Iron Man right now. It's like, oh, Bendis, everything that's old is new again, huh?
Yeah, and that's what's so bizarre, because for me, Infamous right now, like, I was so shocked with last week's issue about how much, like, Bendis was paying attention to the continuity between Doom and Strange, and then to hear him being like, nah, Tony Stark just learns magic, whatever. I'm like, I don't get you. I don't understand you, Bendis.
That's very Bendis too. I have no regard for continuity, even my own continuity. I play haphazard.
Right, but he did, like, the fact that he's like, no, we're gonna talk about how Doctor Strange and Doctor Doom worked together and went to hell and dealt with Mephisto, and it didn't quite work out the way they wanted it. Like, we're gonna talk about that, and then just be like, yeah, but I don't want to talk about that in this book. In this book, I just want to talk about Iron Man, and I don't care anymore. Like, it's so bizarre. Like,
in keeping with the whole, like, Bendis is the only one who's allowed to write about Fantastic Four characters anymore, his first thought is like, oh, hey, Riri, I know who's got a time machine and who will get you home. Let's go over to the Baxter building and we'll talk to adult Franklin Richards, and he'll help you out.
Is he super powerful and godlike?
He's not like you would think he was. Like,
couldn't he just send her back?
You would assume so. I'm like, this is the Franklin Richards who's unto a god, right? He's got rocket boots and a cool speed suit. Maybe
Tony was like, no, now that I'm Sorcerer Supreme, no, I found a way to say no to that. Yeah, no, I'm not dealing with that kid.
No. Sorry, Junior, not Junior anymore. But yeah, he's just hanging out there, and they have, like, a whole, discussion about, like, well, should we even try sending her back now after everything you've told her and everything you've let her see? Couldn't this cause, some major ramifications to the space-time continuum? Only for Tony to turn around and say, you know what? I'm glad she saw this because I want her to have something to strive for when she gets back to her own time, something to build towards, an inspiration to be like, hey, in the future, the Avengers, we ultimately do win, and we do ultimately create something near planetary peace. So, that's a thing.
maybe it's the cynic in me, but every time I see a story in which there is like a utopian society, I'm like, and where is the dark underside to this? Where are we eating people? What's
Exactly.
going on here?
What's Soylent Green made of?
Exactly. Like every single time.
Well, Tony makes a point of saying that, look, with the use of amazing alien technology, we've repaired the ozone layer, turned back pollution, cured disease, and allowed people to live longer. Obviously, there's still street crime and the occasional supervillain, but because we as heroes are so much more powerful now, like, okay, so Morgan Le Fay comes through a portal and is like, I will kill you, Iron Man. And he's like, no, you won't. Go back. And she's like, damn it, you got me.
He should have just slept with her when he first met her.
I know, right?
It really would have solved a lot.
He's like, hey, well, it's funny because like Morgan Le Fay looks exactly the same, but Tony Stark, he's kind of got the silver fox thing going on now because he's older.
Well, it's also like a classic Doctor Strange look, so
it really is. He should have had the best pickup line where it's like, hey, Morgan, just because there's snow on the roof doesn't mean there's not a fire in the basement.
Exactly, and she's like, ew.
Ew.
Just leaves.
I was gonna destroy the world, but you just ruined it now.
Yeah, now I'm just that's just creepy. No.
I don't like this. I'm gonna leave now.
He's like, I win more battles this way.
Yeah. And that was that.
Exactly. All right, so Generations Iron Man kind of went a different way than I think I at least I expected it to go.
Very much so. I had to appreciate it for that. I'm like, this is basically just an issue of two people talking. But I like that it bucked the trend the previous 4 issues set up. I like where it's just like, nah, everything's cool.
Right? The fact is that Bendis loves that. He just loves people talking.
He really does.
He really just wants people to just sit down and have a conversation.
Oh, it's a whole conversation. It's 22 pages of conversation.
Woo! That's a big conversation. Yeah. I guess I will still pick it up. Anything that has to do with magic and the Sorcerer Supreme, I should definitely check out. So
he's gonna go back to this. I just know he is because he already planted the seeds in Infamous Iron Man. We see it here. Infamous and Invincible are going to become one book.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, you're
building
right.
Up to this.
It's definitely something that's going to happen. But like, once again, another book in which we are deciding things about, Doctor Strange and the Sorcerer Supreme. That's not Doctor Strange. Yeah. The book. I'm like, fine. We'll just have to see where it goes. But now we're going to take a turn into the world of indie. This week I picked up a little a book. It's a #1 that came out. It's an all ages book called Scales and Scoundrels. Oh. Normally, when I talk about indie, it's something that has to either do with magic, has to do with horror. More than likely, it has to do with horror. They're usually
sometimes both.
Sometimes it's both. It's true. Most of them are very violent. Most of them are very for mature audiences. But this one, I was like, all ages. Okay, I'll check it out. Why not? This is definitely like a high fantasy kind of story. It's like in a very lived-in world where there's like elves and dwarves and orcs and all that stuff, right? And there's clearly some kind of magic going on, and we have taverns, and we have card games, and we are following a thief who is kind of looking to make their way in the world and has decided to go beyond just cheating people in cards, but onto this grand world where they're like, I'm better than this. I'm gonna go off and try to actually collect real gold and like create a hoard essentially, which is an interesting choice of words because clearly they have some sort of connection with a dragon or are a dragon. I'm not really sure. But it's just kind of this like cute, like, interesting world.
I saw the cover for it. It looked cute.
Yeah, it is. It really is. I mean, like, there could clearly be a lot of heart to this because, I mean, look at shows like Gravity Falls. Like, it's a kid's show, very all ages, very approachable to everyone. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of, depth to that. And there's a lot of, like, heavier things that can happen. And, like, it is accessible by a lot of people. And I'm wondering if this isn't going to be something like that and that we don't go, like, towards that direction. I mean, in this, at one point, they end up almost using the word ass, but they don't. They cut it, which I'm like, it's funny for an all ages because then, like, someone, like, who's younger might be like, what? Excuse me?
Yeah. Where were you going with that?
Yeah, exactly. And just to reiterate the name, because I noticed someone wanted to know what it was, it's called Scales and Scoundrels. Like I said, like, it's just, I'm kind of interested where this is going. It's not something I normally would be like, yeah, I'm going for it. Like, no, I'm like oh, I had to run out and get my Image Plus book because it had a few pages of a witch's story in it, because I was like, yes, I need to be horrified by what lives in trees, and like the fact that I could be pledged and have like my face eaten off and it'd be horrific. This was just it's a seemingly a fun story. And something that honestly, like, you could, no matter what your age is, you could pick this up and probably find something to enjoy about it. Art style, very, like, stylized, a little bit loose, a lot of, like, I don't want to say, like, cartoony caricatures, but in a sense, towards that direction, kind of more like a storybook in a way, fairly colorful. But, you know, again, it was just kind of a fun read for me. I was like, okay, cool, that was fun, I had a nice time, so... There you go. Scales and Scoundrels, number 1.
Sounds different.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. It's different. In a good way. So how about now we go back to DC and we talk about Superman number 30. Now, if any of you watched our most recent episode of Off the Rack, we all mentioned Superman 30 hilariously. I hope that was a funny joke to some people. The funny thing about that was that was going to be Sal's recommendation, and then Ben was like, I'm going to recommend this, and Sal's like, no, I just called that. What? So he's just like, well, I'm recommending it too.
You can't recommend my recommendation.
Exactly. You can recommend me recommending it, so. So Joel, why don't we talk about what happened in Superman 30?
Let's.
This was kind of cool, kind of interesting. I have a couple
Very
of notes
cosmic.
I definitely want to bring up, but I want you to start off and tell us what happened in Superman 30.
So yeah, after the wonderfully horror-inspired issue that preceded it, wherein Parallax, the big evil space bug of fear, was going around kidnapping children from Metropolis, he then possessed Superman, and we get an awesome Parallax redesign of the Superman suit.
Yes.
Looks so metal, and you're like, oh no, Superman's possessed, everybody's boned, who's gonna come and save the day?
Exactly.
In walks Sinestro of all people, being like, yeah, that's my evil interdimensional space bug. Give it back, jerk.
Yeah, pretty much. Like a jilted like boyfriend, he shows up out of the blue and it's just like, I think not, I'll win you back by enslaving you.
Yeah. I'll win you back, baby. I love you so much, which doesn't work well for him because literally the comic opens with just Superman pummeling the mustache off Sinestro's face.
Pretty much. It's just like, look, dude, I get it. I get Sinestro has an ego. I get the fact that he really thinks that he's just like, no, I'm pretty much it in terms of beings. Thank you very much. You know, I always want to be like, have you met Zod? Because I think you two would really have a problem with one another. But it's
I
like,
think so too.
This is Superman. Like, empowered by, you know, Parallax. Like, come on. Like,
A fear god.
yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
To Sinestro's credit, though, this issue does a wonderful job highlighting just how smart he is and how tactical he is, where he's like, look, I wanted you to beat me up so my buddy Lysa Dart could take us back to Quard, the home of the Weaponers, where you will be away from Earth's yellow sun and weekend, and also so I can knock you out with a bunch of, like, Weaponer thunderbolts and take you underground to basically have the DC cosmic equivalent of an exorcism.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much.
The power of Sinestro compels you. The power of Sinestro compels you.
Very much so. When the moment he got his like Sinestro whip out, I was like, really?
We're going here. Your name is Kal-El. Yeah, that's where they went with it.
Very like, I was like, all right. I mean, I guess like I wouldn't know how to get him out. You know what I mean? Like,
and apparently Sinestro didn't really know either, because Superman's like, dude, it's not in here anymore. He left, and Sinestro's like, no. I know he's in there somewhere. I just gotta make you more afraid, Superman, than you've ever been in your life.
Well, it's really funny to me because, like, Sinestro's answer to everything is fear. And it's just like, but if what you're dealing with is fear, more fear isn't really gonna help. I don't know, like, that doesn't really jive for me.
It's like the David Bowie song, I'll put out this fire with gasoline.
Exactly. It's like, dude, there's a reason that you and Hal are like mortal enemies. Like, it's opposites. You gotta, no? Alright, fine. More fear.
You can only brute force, and I love Superman actually compares Sinestro to Hal a couple times, being like, oh my god, are all you lanterns this stubborn?
Yeah, apparently, yeah.
That's just a thing you have?
Yeah, pretty much. So we got Superman up there. He gets Parallax essentially like beaten out of him. We do get to see Superman's greatest fears.
Love that.
which I was like, this is a spectacular, like, just splash of images. Like, just the things that, like, Superman is afraid of. And, like, it's funny, you read, like, Superman, like, there's a part of it that always understands, like, his responsibility and understands, like, where he has to be, and he has to do all these things, and, like, now he's balancing a family and with all of this stuff, right? But it's like, for some reason, when faced with that essentially that splash page of images, I was like, whoa, like, it just really hit me hard just how much Superman has on his shoulders at all times. And, like,
he fears not being able to save everybody. He fears his wife dying before him. He fears being a failure.
Right. And it's not just that, like, the part about Lois dying I thought was super interesting, because, like, they indicated that it was some sort of, like, disease, more than likely cancer of sorts, something that he couldn't help. That's exactly it. I was like, wow, like, that's crazy. Like, and, like,
it instantly reminded me of Thor right now, because that's the exact same reaction Thor had when he first found out Jane had cancer.
Right? Like,
he's like, find me this foul demon cancer. I will fight him. It's like, dude, it's an Earth disease, man.
Yeah, that's not how that works, man. It's, like, if you could do that, you'd be like, you would be like Earth's hero. And also the fact that, like, he's afraid of failing John. Obviously. Yes. And, like, that, of course, has been fed by recent events, more than likely. But, like, for me, this was just a very enlightening set of pages, and I thought they were really well done, and, like, just really insightful for the character, and just a little reminder for, like, all of us, I think, that it's like, yes, Superman is a beacon of hope and a beacon of justice, and, like, always wants to do the right thing, and, like, you can almost always rely on him, essentially, but it's just, like, he's still a person, and, like, while he may be an alien, like, he was raised by humans, and, like, he has a lot of human fears, and, like, because he loves so
more
much,
than ever now.
Yeah, exactly. So, anyway, I'm done gushing about that.
I was gonna say, can I mention too, from an Easter egg point of view, in the panel where he sees, evil John if he fails as a father and his son turns to the dark side. Did you see what heroes John had killed off to the side there?
I didn't.
There was a Robin who looked to be Tim Drake. There was Blue Beetle, Aqualad, and also Miss Martian.
Interesting.
Miss Martian, who has not shown up yet in canon as far as I know. I like the idea that she was here in this, like, crazy vision he had.
Yeah. That's kind of cool.
It basically was like a Young Justice lineup, and I'm like, ooh, are they planting the seeds of a possible Young Justice lineup where it's like, Damian will have the Teen Titans, but John will have Young Justice.
Right. Also, there was that interesting panel where Wonder Woman is fighting what looks like Doomsday, but she calls it Clark.
Yeah. Is that like a callback to, like, when Superman had the Doomsday disease or some shit?
Which it could be. He might have those memories. So, but, like, still, it's something that's in there. Like, Doomsday is an ever-present being, or at least a thought in his mind to some degree. Yeah. If that was who it was, again, it was just one panel. But anyway, so we get beyond the fear, and Parallax makes a break for it. I love how Sinestro immediately just turns on Lysa. He's like, oh yeah, no, it's you. She's like, no.
Damn it, I was wrong. Okay, well, there's got to be one of you. There's got to be someone in this room.
Exactly.
just no friends, no loves, no allies, Sinestro.
No, it's true, and it's funny because, like, she's right. She's like, you can't use fear to get him out. It's not going to work. Like...
Stop telling me things.
Yeah. He's just like, if you're telling me what to do, clearly you're the enemy.
Get your logic out of here, Dark. And it's great. Superman's ultimate way of defeating Parallax is to trap it, where it's like, look, I will take up Sinestro's ring.
Yeah.
I will trap Parallax inside, and you know what? I'm not going to give it back to you. I'm going to give this to the Green Lanterns, and you'll just be ringless.
Exactly. Now, I'll be the first one to admit, like, my knowledge of lanterns is fairly limited. Same. So the fact that he took up the a Yellow Lantern ring and then attempted to use hope through it, I was like, does that work? Does it?
Yeah, maybe a Green Lantern expert could say us. It was so cool, I was willing to give it a pass just because it was Superman.
And it was funny, too. It was literally as though Superman was, like, catching a feral cat or, like, a bear who wandered into a neighborhood and was like, no, it's just come with me and I'll release you elsewhere because I don't want you to have to deal with all of this, but, like, it's not really your fault. It's like, it's just...
he even gives some uplifting words to the Weaponers, which I feel like no one's ever really tried to save the Weaponers from Sinestro before. It's like, hey, guys, You know you don't gotta follow him around and do everything he tells you to do, right?
Right? Exactly. Like,
And the Weaponers like, we never thought of that before, Superman. Good
right? In
job.
fact, like when he like stands against them and tries to save one of the Weaponers, they're like, "Whoa!
That's never happened before.
He like cared about us."
Hey, Superman, you ever need like a doomsday device made? We can totally build it for you.
We got your back. And that'd be kind of cool to have that as like a thing in his back pocket where he's just like, I'm gonna need something.
Guess who owes me a favor? The greatest weapons builders in the universe, maybe in the multiverse.
Yeah, exactly. So
I need a giant bomb to fight Dr. Manhattan. Can you build me a giant bomb, guys? We sure can, Superman.
just don't make it any sort of like nuclear.
Oh.
Yeah, don't go that way. It's not gonna.
Well, that's not
It's
fun.
not gonna go the way we want it to at that point. It's Dr. Manhattan. Overall, kind of an interesting story. I wouldn't say it was like the best one I've ever read, but kind of fun to see.
It was a nice twofer. As far as these like
was.
two little breather issues go, this is probably one of the best two-issuers they've done.
I definitely agree with that. The only problem I had with it was the art changes.
Yeah, it's kind of all over the place. It didn't stay consistent. Sometimes it looks awesome. Sometimes it's like, ooh, no.
Yeah, and there's like 3 different artists who work on it, and it's clear that 2 of them didn't talk to each other. Because Lysa is wearing one outfit for several pages,
She
and
sure
then
is.
later on she's wearing something totally different. To the point where I had to go back where I was like, did I miss something? Did I miss, like, did they, like, go some... Nope. Literally
Was
just...
there a costume change I didn't see?
Exactly. Just the artists weren't, like, talking with each other, and probably by the time they figured it out, it was too late. They're like, yeah, just send it off. It doesn't matter.
Price we pay for these books coming out on the schedule they come out
It
on.
really is. It really does come down to that, and hopefully it just means that, like, whatever arc is coming up is, like, there's a lot more care and, attention being paid to it. But it's a small gripe, honestly, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But it was just, like, that really threw me off. Again, like I said, like, I was like, wait, what? Did we go somewhere? What happened? Did Sinestro do something? He's just like, I didn't like what you're wearing. Change for me now. I care not for what you wear. This does not please Sinestro.
Nice. Yeah. No, I imagine he'd be like that.
Yeah, right? Just a little bit.
You wore Croc sandals in my presence. I demand you change these now.
Exactly. That strikes fear into no one.
You wore a tracksuit to this important meeting? The hell's the matter with you?
Why are you there with him, Joel?
Self-insert.
So there you go, guys. Superman number 30
That's
wraps
why.
up this whole Parallax story with Superman. And now we're on to the next arc in Superman. I wouldn't say this was necessarily the best place to jump on, but if you did, you would only be slightly confused as to how he became infected with Parallax, but that would be pretty much it.
Also, if you're one of those people who reads the Green Lantern books but doesn't read Superman, yeah, definitely pick these up because there's a little stinger at the end that says, hey, want to see what happened with Parallax, pick up current Green Lantern books.
It's true. It's absolutely true. So, like, it kind of an interesting way to do a crossover without really doing a crossover. So,
Yeah.
So now we're gonna move over to Marvel. Kind of ping-ponging us back and forth here a little bit. I was asked about this on Twitter a little bit because I've been reading the Edge of Venomverse stuff, which is really funny.
You might be the only person.
I know, right? I was like, I will read you Edge of Venomverse, even though I have very little interest in the character of Venom, and not like I'm like, oh, he's stupid or whatever. It's just I was never just like, yes, I will read Venom. I think it's
Please, Tiff, be our Venom Sherpa.
I am today. I picked up Venomverse. I actually picked up Venomverse and Edge of Venomverse War Stories. I will talk mostly about Venomverse. I will barely talk about War Stories because it's a collection of small stories that are just kind of fun, but
They love their anthology tie-ins, don't they?
They really do. And again, it's a bunch of different writers, a bunch of different artists, and like just some interesting concepts in there, but we'll get to that. Let's just talk about Venomverse. Venomverse starts where essentially, like, I was like, okay, when I started Venomverse, the Edge of series, I thought, I didn't know what to think, but it was clearly about all those, like, individual characters, right? This is like, hey, we're going to talk about Eddie Brock for a little bit. Remember him? Remember Eddie Brock and how he was Venom?
I remember you getting rid of him and replacing him with Flash Thompson, the superior Venom, and then bringing Eddie Brock back.
Right? Yeah, no. Well, now he's back. And so seemingly, I think this is taking place, this part of the issue, at least in our universe, or in 616.
Okay, so this is 616. Okay.
Yeah, I think.
But we don't know.
This book definitely is like, there's a multiverse, we're talking about it, deal with it, let's go. We catch Eddie as he is essentially tracking down a supervillain by the name of Jack-O-Lantern.
Which is a character who comes up a lot in the Venom books.
Right? Fun design, kind of interesting just in general. Eddie essentially is just like, okay, I got you. And like Jack-O-Lantern's like, okay, yeah, fair enough, you got me. I surrender. Cool, now you can take me in. And then he's like, nah, man, you don't get it. You're like a serial killer, so I'm just gonna kill you. Okay? He's like...
Someone saying in the chat, wasn't Jack-O-Lantern dead? Dude, there's like several Jack-O-Lanterns. It could be any of them. It could be a new one.
So Eddie attempts to kill him by throwing him off of a fire escape. He lands on his face, busting open his helmet. And a crowd shows up, and the crowd's like, dude, it's like a superhero fight. And they're like all like talking about, or supervillain fight. They're all talking about what's happening. And they're like, we should call the cops or something, right? And just as Venom is going to like give the final blow, he is like zipped away, much like the characters from Venomverse are. And he arrives in a totally different like New York, essentially, that is decimated. It is just messed up from like top to bottom, and there's this like super white albino kid there who's like
powder.
Yeah, kind of, except it's like it's emaciated, and it's just like, hey, I need you to help me. And like Eddie, like the mask reveals his face, and like he's like gonna help the kid, and that's when Captain America Venom shows up and like hits the kid in the face with a shield and kills him. Nice. And he's like, dude, what? And he's just like, don't you touch them.
I did it for America.
Well, yeah, he's like, don't you touch them. They're bad. They're real bad. We gotta go. I'll explain on the way. So as it turns out, there is this... Okay, before I even get into this, I loved the Doctor Strange story with the Empirical, where they were hunting magic, the last days of magic, right?
That's right?
Okay. This is a group of little aliens who are hunting down symbiotes to join with them, called the Poison. And what will happen is they're going, essentially, they're going to travel, I guess, through the multiverse, kind of like, I guess, Spider-Verse in a way.
Or the Inheritors.
And they are essentially killing hosts who have symbiotes and then taking on the symbiote.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the symbiotes aren't a fan of that, necessarily, because it seems
obviously not.
like this is just like what I'm getting from it, but it seems like these little poison guys end up being in control. 100%, right. Which is not something the symbiote tends to enjoy necessarily. At least they have a 50-50 relationship at the very least.
Yeah.
So Cap has been recruiting others to fight, because anyone who touches a little one, you're in trouble, and you become, this poison version of it, right? And then once they're big and powerful and ultra strong, then you can technically fight them. So I'm not really sure how the end game for this is going to run, because it's like, you got all these little things, how are we going to stop them necessarily? But Eddie shows up, and he's just like, hey, other, like, Venoms, and, like, you see, like, this cool splash page of all these different Venoms, some that we saw actually being pulled in Edge of Venomverse, and then a whole bunch of other ones that we didn't see at all, including a Ghost Rider one, and we have like, Rocket Raccoon, and we got 2 different Wolverines, and we have a Black Panther version, just a lot of ones, and then we even have a Peter Parker who didn't give up the suit.
Oh,
which I was like, that's kind of cool, and immediately those two are button heads.
Button heads, yeah.
Because Peter Parker's like, Eddie Brock's a jerk, and Eddie Brock's like, Peter Parker is an asshole.
You're the asshole. I think if we take nothing away from this event, it's that people love drawing Venom.
Right? Really. And like, here is where Tiffany immediately was like, I was meant to read this event. Because they're like, how did we all get here? What's even going on? And they're like, well, you were brought here by magic. And that's about the time they wheel out Venom Doctor Strange.
Round of applause, a heart punch for that.
So he basically just like discovered that the poison were coming and was like, we have to save our symbiotes because they're never going to stop. So he started like pulling people from the multiverse who had symbiotes, because he's like, look, there are countless symbiotes, there are countless multiverses, but it takes a lot for him to do it. So he can only pull in so many at a time, but they've lost a lot of soldiers. And of course, Captain America has taken up the reins of like kind of leading everyone. But the fact is, like, nobody's really ready for this. And like, I don't really know what their end game is. But they end up being followed by the Hulk version of a symbiote who was taken over by the poison, and he's like crazy looking. Like it looks like he's just covered in some sort of like skin like plate stuff, and like he is just insane and
you need some lotion is what you're saying.
Yeah, he's incredibly powerful, and like they're like, we can't stop him. So they are like, immediately they're like, we got to get Doctor Strange out of here right now, because he's the only one who can pull more of us in to fight this and to hopefully end up stopping it. So in the end, Captain America ends up going down because like the Hulk has him, and he's like, you have to bring the building down on us. So Rocket Raccoon, Venom uses a bomb, brings the building down, and Eddie Brock and Peter Parker end up together as they're escaping.
Of course.
So we get like some interesting, conversation between the two of them, and how like Peter's like, you just don't get it. Like, we have to stop the poison. And he's just like, I don't really care. They're not going to come for me. And like, Peter's like, we're being hunted. And he's like, I'm the hunter here, honestly. Like, he just can't get his brain off of being like the alpha. And it's like, dude, you got to get over it. And then like a little one of them shows up, and they kind of get away from that. And that's about the time that another one of the infected Venoms shows up, and it's Dr. Octopus as a Venom infected with the poison, and they start fighting him, and like Peter's like, it's really much easier if you don't think about them as their old characters. I'm guessing because it could be hurtful at times, especially if it's someone like the Hulk, or if it was another character that you know of, but also because they don't necessarily act like themselves even remotely, because that person is gone. It like, interestingly enough, takes on the appearance of the host, but supposedly the host is dead.
Right.
And like gone. So it's just kind
of that deals with the problem of hats on top of hats. No, it's not Doc Ock infected with the symbiote infected with the poison. Yeah, it's just the poison wearing a Doc Ock suit.
Exactly. It just looks like him. So they start to fight him, and then Peter gets like flung from the fight, and when he turns around, he hears a voice calling his name, and he sees Aunt May, but she's a ghostly white Aunt May, because the little ones can make themselves look like someone who's meaningful to the individual. That's insidious. It's real bad. Ends up touching it, and in doing so, he ends up becoming an infected symbiote, who is Peter Parker, but not really. So, like, I gotta tell you, like, I am surprisingly, like, into this now, not knowing a whole lot about, like, Venom, other than, like, Venom's mini progeny and all that stuff, and the fact that he's been several different characters, just his overall origin. What's interesting, too, is that when they're all talking together, they all kind of accuse Eddie of being like, listen, man, like, in every universe where you get the symbiote, it's always corrupted. Because it's you.
Huh.
And, like, the rest of them have a fairly good relationship with their symbiote.
I'm surprised they don't blame Deadpool, because due to new retcons, he was technically the first one to have it.
Right? No. I know. They blame Eddie. They say they indicate that in other universes where he gets it, he's also a jerk.
That's fair.
In Enter Venomverse, we get to see a bunch of different multiverse stuff. We find out that there's a cool character that we never got to see who was infected by one of the poison, because apparently in one of the universes, Moon Knight got a symbiote.
Oh,
I was like,
shit.
Dude, how many voices can you have in your head at the same time? Once.
Us will get back to yous in a minute.
Yeah, it's like Venom talking with Khonshu, talking
with all of his other personalities.
Exactly. I was like, I kind of really want to see that. In another universe, we get to see that Carol Danvers is Captain America.
Oh.
But that's not even about her being Venom. It's about Rocket Raccoon being Venom. And then in another universe, we see a universe in which the Punisher kind of lost against the Kingpin and accepts a deal with Venom. And
well, that's just OP right there. They gotta nerf him in the next update.
Right? He becomes the symbiote. He makes a deal with him where he's just like, you'll help me kill a bunch of guys. And then Venom's like, but you'll help me kill one guy. And so they do all of the Punisher stuff, Frank stuff, and then they go off, and he's just like, I'll show you who you gotta kill. And he wants Spider-Man to die.
Of course.
And Frank won't do it. And then they get pulled into the multiverse event going on. So he never actually has to do it. I was like, good for you, Frank. Good for you.
Well, way to game the system.
Right? And then, like, one of the final ones that I was, like, super excited about, because I was like, is this going to come into play? Is Doctor Doom with the symbiote.
Oh, that's a good one. That's strong.
Right? So, like, in that universe, it's like, we have a lot of different characters. For some reason, Luke Cage is, like, an Iron Man character. So, like, it's just indicating, like, this is a different universe. And in this universe...
Topsy-turvy.
Yeah. Dr. Doom ended up with the Venom symbiote, and they're, like, battling one another. Because, like, Dr. Doom's like, no, I have the symbiote, and it's totally fine. Don't worry, I have it under control. And the symbiote's like, no, you don't. I'm going to take over any minute now. And he's like, no, you're not. And they end up having a huge battle in which Dr. Doom essentially, I think, loses, is the indication. And then he, too, is pulled away. Or, like, he goes elsewhere on his own accord because he senses there are other Venoms. So I'm like,
Right.
Are you going to show up in the main event? Because I kind of want to see Dr. Doom's symbiote doing things, too. So
who doesn't want to see that?
Right? Overall, kind of like a fun event. Like, I'm wondering where they're going to end up with this at the end, because, like, they just brought Eddie Brock back, so I feel like there's very little chance that he's not going to survive this to some degree. But it is kind of interesting to see other, like, versions of the symbiote have a healthy relationship with their host.
Yeah. Well, speaking of healthy relationships, have they mentioned Flash Thompson at all, or are they trying to bury him right now? It would be funny if Flash Thompson came in at some point.
Right? No, they haven't mentioned him as of yet.
If there's an infinite multiverse of Venoms, that needs to be one.
Right? You'd think so. And, like, that's where I'm wondering if some of these Edge of Venomverse war stories are going to come into play with these little, like, mini tales that we get. And I think those are really just written to be like, we had a couple of other ideas, we just couldn't get into what was going on.
Yeah.
So we want to just tell those stories elsewhere. That'd be kind of cool, though, if he shows up, too, and then, like, Eddie Brock and Flash have to, like, solve this together, so it'd be kind of neat. I don't know. I'd be into it.
Same.
So, all right, so why don't we go, we're going to kind of stick in the DC universe for the rest of the show. Another book that really hasn't been talked about a whole lot, but Joel got a chance to read it this week, Nightwing.
Yes.
Which
I'm really happy.
I mentioned, like, when Joel was talking about the different books that he got to read, and he was excited about having read Daredevil and Nightwing, I was like, Joel, I'm learning a lot about you. You really like guys who have sticks or batons, who jump around and hit people with those sticks.
Who have very active love lives but can never make it work for whatever reason.
Exactly. That's just your speed. I get it.
Yeah, it says a lot. Well, it was either that or Green Arrow, and I'm just like, well, I read these two first, so guess I'll just talk about these. Nightwing has also been doing really awesome right now under Tim Seeley. We've had a number of very strong arcs back to back, and this one kind of brings Tim Seeley's time on Nightwing full circle. You see, he was dealing with a group of arms traffickers called the Second Hand, who were dealing in super weapons capable of killing superheroes, and they were all flooding the streets of Bloodhaven, and Dick just couldn't have any of that. And in fact, his hacker buddy died while looking into them, so it was a very personal vendetta for him to catch these guys. We eventually discover the Second Hand is not a group of arms dealers at all. They are, in fact, Spiral, the spy group that employed Dick Grayson while he was faking his own death.
Oh.
They have seemingly been corrupted from the inside out. King Tiger, who was Dick's, like, running buddy and, like, partner in crime during all that, he's trying to kill him. He ends up recruiting Huntress, who was his old teacher and handler, and together they, fight with a bunch of the former students against Spiral, who was actually, I think, made up of a bunch of, like, Wildstorm, like, minor characters, because Tim Seeley loves those guys, so he was sure to like, fill their ranks with them.
Gotcha.
And we eventually discover, when he goes deep into the bowels of the Spiral Academy, he finds King Tiger's body hooked up to a bunch of machines. And that's because the guy he was fighting wasn't King Tiger at all. It was actually Mr. Minos, making himself look like King Tiger. And I see you looking like, well, who the fuck's Mr. Minos? Mr. Minos was Agent Dick Grayson's original handler back when Grayson first started. He was the first villain that he overcame during his spy days.
Oh, all right.
And the thing is, this has all been part of a deeply laid plan by Minos, who is angry at Dick for destroying his Minos files, which included the secret identities and weaknesses of, like, every hero in the DC universe. This is what he was trying to collect because Minos didn't like superheroes. He distrusted them. And that was part of the other reason that Batman sent him in undercover to Spiral in the first place, to destroy these files and protect the superhero community.
Okay.
And the deal is Minos is like, at first I just wanted to kill you was my thing, but now I actually want to replace you because I have this amazing face-changing technology. I'm going to, like, live in your body, and I'm going to get nice.
Are we doing Face-Off?
Well, here's the thing. Minos has no face at all. He has a blank face.
Okay,
That's his thing.
Okay.
So yes, we're basically doing Face Off. I want to take your face off, Dick Grayson.
Exactly. And
Put
then,
it onto mine.
right, and I'll replace yours with like Nicolas Cage or whatever.
And then we're going to talk about peaches a lot. And then
No!
I'm gonna infiltrate the superhero community, and I'm gonna build back up my files again. And this is what I'm gonna do. What's interesting though is that Dick defeats the robot, as is so often the case in these stories, by just talking to the robot a lot. Because that's the thing, Minos isn't a person at all. Minos is a robot who was programmed by Spiral to hate the superhero community, and that's why he A, didn't die the first time, and B, why he's back now doing this.
Right, it wasn't just that the death didn't take.
No. He's a robot where I'm like, okay, that answers some question. That's
Right.
pretty cool.
Okay.
And in the end, Huntress helps him out, and the real King Tiger helps him out, and it's just a real, like, kind of love letter send off for Spiral and everything. And
Okay.
Dick kind of got to come back and help his old friends.
Now, was Minos aware that he was a robot, or was that like a great reveal where it's just like, aw, man?
He knew he was a robot.
Okay.
No one else knew he was. It was surprising for Dick to find out he was a robot.
All right, so he's gonna take. If he took Dick's face off and put it on his face, how does that work? He's a robot.
I don't know. They didn't get that far to explain. He's a robot, but he's also crazy, is the other thing.
All right, fair enough. He's gonna.
And he's one of those Blade Runner robots. He's one of those, like, oh, I have seen many great things, Dick Grayson.
All right, he's gonna pull a Joker, and just kind of put it on there with tape and staples. Be like, there.
And a belt.
Now
He's gonna show up. Hey, superhero friends, it's me, the Dick Grayson.
they're all like, okay, that's obviously not him.
Undo.
Eject him into the sun.
Just to get that over with.
Yeah.
What's funny though is that the hard-working B plot of this story actually involves Dick's new love interest.
Okay.
A woman who is actually a reformed supervillainess. She was an art criminal by the name of Defacer, is her thing. And in Bloodhaven, she was kind of helping out a group called the Runoffs, who are a bunch of D-list villains who got run out of Gotham and are now trying to, combat their villainous tendencies. They have a support group in Bloodhaven. She and Dick, they were on a break, man. They had a big fight and they broke up.
Okay.
And into her life comes her old supervillain running buddy, the Pigeon. Get it? Because Pigeon and Defacer, and together they'd go out and they'd fuck over statues. That was their shtick. And she's like, look, girl, you don't need no man in your life right now. Let's you and me put on our costumes and go back like in the old days and mess up some of these statues and make an art statement.
Did his costume involve a beak and or feathers?
Oh, it was a her.
Oh, her. Did her costume involve a beak and or feathers?
Well, I think she had actual wings is the thing. I think she's like an actual metahuman with real bird wings.
That's just kind of on the nose then, don't you think?
That's very on the nose. I don't think she had like I don't think it was a costume. I think that's like legit how she looked.
That's just, oh, okay. All right.
And through the course of this, she actually finds out that the girlfriend of the dead tech guy was trying to take revenge on a local crime boss who she believed to be involved. She actually wasn't. But Defacer gets involved with that, helps her out, and kind of comes back to herself and goes, oh, God, what am I doing? Sliding back into supervillainy. I am not working my program is what I'm doing. I'm not doing my 12 steps to overcome supervillaindom.
Okay.
I feel bad about this. I'm going to go to Dick and I'm going to say I'm sorry. And I'm going to hope that, we can get our relationship back on track. Oh, but she picks the worst time to go there because obviously Dick has been hanging out with Huntress this whole time.
Oh.
And they've been getting really close and being like, man, this really brings back memories of like when you and I were a thing, back during the Spiral days. And she's like, yeah, me too, man. Want to go back to your place for coffee? And he's like, yep, sure do.
That's
and
like,
she ends up.
I was going to say, that's like Luke Cage coffee, right?
Oh, yeah. The Grand Theft Auto hot coffee. And it's funny because, she can fly Defacer. She's got, like, paint can rocket boots. And she, like, flies up to, like, Nightwing's window. And she looks in and sees them in the throes of passion. And it's a great art bit because it's, like, it's her going through, like, every stage of tragedy. Denial, anger, sadness. All in the span of a few seconds.
Okay. Fair enough.
And it's pretty solid. I dug this one. I think Tim Seeley does a great job balancing the superhero with the soap opera.
But it's my understanding he seems to really like the character, and like that.
yeah.
It's like it's funny because it's like it's you don't think about how important that is to have like a writer on a book who just really likes the character and hasn't been writing it for too long. So
absolutely,
that's awesome. All right. All right, there you go. That was Nightwing. Again, we don't normally get a chance to talk about Nightwing, so I'm excited that now I think actually 2 shows in a row because of that Nightwing Elseworld style book. We talked about that I think last time, so it's kind of cool.
right.
This is awesome. I'm enjoying hearing about these. Now staying in DC, and not only staying in DC, but staying in the Bat family. You guys knew this had to be coming. We weren't going to be leaving this episode without talking about Batman number 30.
The continuation of the Ballad of Kite Man.
Exactly. Wojar, the Ballad of Kite Man.
Which I love they make a big point of saying on the cover for this, interlude to War of Jokes and Riddles, to which I'm like, okay, how can you have an interlude only 2 issues after your last interlude? Also, after reading the book, this is no fucking interlude.
No,
you need to read this. This is super important.
Yeah, this is just an issue in the story, let's be honest. Now, if you hear me critiquing this book, it's not about the Kite Man that I necessarily have the issue with. It has to do with the overall way that this event is running right now.
Same here.
Like, that's really what I have an issue with, is, again, it really comes down to calling it an interlude. And the fact that at the end of the day, this seems like Tom King, look, man, you're Tom King. It's okay if you just go into DC and say, I want to write a 6-issue miniseries about Kite Man that's kind of like American Alien, where we're just seeing snapshots of his life for each issue. Because clearly you just want to write about him, and that's totally cool. Just do that.
You get it.
Just go for it. You're allowed to do that.
I think this issue, I finally cracked the code of why Tom King cares so much about Kite Man and why he was willing to make him such a centerpiece of this event.
Because he loves kites, right?
There's that, but there's also this other thing is that, like, you know, he really tries to hit home the tragedy of Kite Man in this story where it's like, you know, my wife called me a loser and a failure, and my son thought I was a joke and everything, but, you know, I was positive Charlie Brown about the whole thing. Like, sure, I fall down, but I get up again, and I keep doing it because I'm not a quitter, and I'm not afraid of being a loser, and I'm not afraid of looking like a joke. Juxtaposed to Batman, who is so afraid of losing so early in his career and so afraid of being thought of like as just, oh, that bat joke guy, that he's willing to join forces with a child murderer and do the bidding of the Riddler. And I'm like, oh, now this is the Tom King I know, the Tom King who stealthily takes the piss out of Batman by saying that in his mind, Kite Man is better than Batman.
Yeah, it's again, like I said, like it's really clear that like this was the character he wanted to write about, and there's really nothing wrong with that. You know what I mean? Like, we've seen him do it in Vision, we're watching him do it with Mr. Miracle. Like, it's okay to do these character studies. It's okay to do mini series, but like, don't, like, I don't know, like, if you want to give him the attention, give him the attention. But, like, don't, like, make it be like, it's a Batman book, but it's not really a Batman book. You know?
Yeah. Also, too, as far as the tragedy of Kite Man goes, I mentioned this in the previous one, and I stand by. Keep in mind, I actually liked this second issue much more than I liked the first one.
Agreed.
We're supposed to feel bad for Charles Brown. I don't, though, because everything he does is his own fault.
Yeah, to some degree, and like while we hear, well, hang on, let's just talk really quickly about what happens in this.
Right.
In this, we really just see, like, Kite Man has joined the Joker side. It's just a lot of him going out with supervillains on the Joker side, like as like a team up essentially, and
learning the trade on the go.
It is really very much is, and then like essentially getting their butts kicked. And then the other more recognizable supervillain being taken away by Batman or Riddler's side.
Yes, which I love. They make a point that Batman's gone all in on Riddler. He has a green armband now.
Yeah, and we could talk about that. I think that's definitely something for us to discuss. But, like, at the end of the day, we just see him going through this whole thing. He has a lot of conversations with the supervillains, just different perspectives on certain things. And then we also...
Cluemaster was my favorite.
Yeah, that one was very good. I was like, that guy knows. That was awesome.
Between Snyder and now King, Cluemaster has just been getting all the good shit written about him, apparently.
Right. So, but then we also have this, like, internal conversation that's going on with Kite Man, where it's him having a conversation with his now dead son in the past about how his wife calls him a joke and, like, has said it in front of their kid a couple of times. And he just wants to understand what that means, why she does that, and it's about his like failures, and it's it's this interesting psychological profile and emotional profile on this character. And in the end, like, it's like this kind of sad story about how the kid wants to go out and actually try flying a kite this time because it always fails. But he's like, even if it failed, then we can all laugh, much like everyone laughs at you. And it's like this weird mixed message. Like, the kid doesn't quite get it, but at the same time, Kite Man doesn't take this as a rallying cry.
No.
Like, he just kind of accepts that as like his fate. I mean, to some degree, I guess him becoming Kite Man was an attempt at that, but he went with Kite Man, so it's like still it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It really is, and it's funny too. He mentions, because by the end of the story, he's the last Joker henchman standing. Everyone else has been defeated. He's the last one, which I guess is his reward of being like, oh well, Charles Brown is so stick-to-it and so like never say die, never quit. Even in like great adversity, he sticks in there to the very end. He says something that made me laugh. And I'm sure Tom King meant this, and it's the first time in a long time I think I've been on the same wavelength as him, where Kite Man says, hey, this whole situation reminds me of the joke, the Greek guy who pushes the boulder up the hill, but, always ends up getting crushed every time. Ha, 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 good joke. That's not a joke. That's the story of Sisyphus. That's one of the oldest Greek tragedies of all time. But then I'm like, oh, of course, Charles Brown is a dumbass. Of course he wouldn't know that.
He doesn't understand it. He doesn't perceive it the correct way necessarily.
Which is his entire life.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, like, there's like the tragedy of who he is. There's the tragedy of him losing his son. And then there's like something else that goes on around him in which Batman and the Riddler pinpoint Kite Man as being the weak link.
Yes,
they're like, we will collect every other villain around him that works for the Joker and leave Kite Man for last, because Kite Man's the one that will totally give up the Joker.
Yes, because he's such a failure and such a loser.
Because he's a failure and he's weak at the end of the day. So that's pretty much...
They even say it, where he's like, why, because I'm Kite Man? Hell yeah.
Yeah, which is like weirdly meta, and I'm like, wait, how do you know that?
Yeah, how do you know his catchphrase, Riddler?
Yeah, what's going on here? But, they do catch him at the end, and they're clearly going to, like, try to bring this whole thing to a close. Now, Kite Man's story aside, I think when like King writes about these lesser known characters and can develop a story that may or may not have truly fully been developed, I think that's really where he shines.
Absolutely.
So while this is really random, if you read it just as just like okay, this is kind of an interesting character study and we're learning a lot about this, fine. In the midst of everything that's going on, though, I'm like, I know we had the dinner, right? And, like, from that, it seemed like Bruce Wayne was going to bankroll someone, and that was the big sin. And then it turns out there's an unseen conversation where Batman decides to join the Riddler, whose plan originally was to kill Batman because he thought that's what would fix things.
Yep, as with everything in this Tom King series, the real story happens between the margins, you see. Right, the real logistical information you would want, you don't get.
That's exactly it. And here's the thing, I'm all for, like, having some things unspoken because, like, I don't necessarily need someone to hold my hand. But that's, like, a huge shift in a character's motivations. Like, the Riddler
you
was
can't ignore that.
Yeah, Riddler's like, no, we have to kill Batman. At the end of the day, that's what we have to do, and that's going to be great, and that'll help to take him down. If at the end of the day, like, Riddler is just like, no, like, this is all part of my plan, and I will kill Batman in the end, fine, but, like, I still...
Riddler also got a stupid awesome deal. He gets money, Batman doing his dirty work, and in return, all he has to do is not kill anybody.
Exactly.
Or at least not kill any innocent people. He didn't say he wouldn't kill Batman.
That's true. Or if the Riddler recognizes that, like, while he is, like, potentially, like, in his own head, an ego, like, a greater, like, criminal than the Joker is a lunatic. I mean, not that the Riddler isn't crazy himself, but, like, I'm just wondering if he's like, this is never going to stop, because he'll never stop.
Yeah.
But we don't get to have any of this dialogue, and like I said, like, I don't necessarily always need to have everything spelled out for me. That seems like an interesting character point that we might have wanted to discuss, especially with Batman just showing up and joining forces with these villains. Like, while, yes, the tragedy of Kite Man is an interesting story,
yeah,
seeing Batman, who seemingly is doing all of this, like, very much on his own often, like, while we do see Harvey Dent, or Two-Face, dealing with things, we see Batman kicking a lot of butt, which we hadn't really seen early on when he was, like, facing off against Deathstroke and...
Deadshot. He was afraid to fight those two at once. Yeah,
he was having a really hard time with that, and then all of a sudden we turn around and he's totally fine, and who cares? But it's like, I would really love to see him being forced into a partnership with these villains who he knows is he's on the wrong side of things, but he has to pick one side or another. Yeah. This is where Tom King has put him, and we're not seeing this yet. I don't know if we're going to have another time jump in the next issue, or if we're never going to talk about this relationship, or if we're just going to kind of skip to the end.
Yeah, to the book's credit, though, it actually did answer some logistical information that I was dying to hear since, like, issue 1, and that is, why are these villains loyal to Riddler or Joker? And Cluemaster, of all people, spells it out, saying, like, look, we're only really following the Joker because we're afraid of him. I'm like, okay, well, you got metahumans like Man-Bat and Mr. Freeze who should be able to kill him, but whatever. He's unpredictable. He's basically the devil. Whatever. That's fine. You don't want to cross him. But then Cluemaster goes the extra mile by saying, like, look, if we leave, he'll kill us. But if Batman beats us up in the line of duty, then we can get off scot-free, which maybe answers your question. Is the only reason Batman's winning is because the villains are letting him win? Is that why?
I don't know. I think Cluemaster definitely did, but there are others on that side who had too much of an ego and were too early on.
Down easy.
Yeah, to go down like that, I think. It's funny. He takes down Mr. Freeze, and there's a part of me that's like, that's just him being a bully, but there's a part of me that was like, that's so smart. Just be like...
Just crack his windshield.
Exactly. He really needs that.
This is a medical device, you dick. Did you see me kicking your iron lung?
Exactly. You wouldn't take a little boy's inhaler, would you?
Batman, if that little boy was committing crimes, maybe.
Exactly. So for me, this issue was like a very much like Two-Face in a sense. There were parts of it that I enjoyed, like, again, like I said, like, and I've said it many times, but I enjoyed the depth of character to Kite Man. I like seeing Tom King explore these avenues, even if it is for a really seemingly unimportant character like Charles Brown. But at the same time, like, there's just so many other things I wish we were doing with this thing.
You say not important character. This issue kind of makes him the Jar Jar of this event. Kite Man is the key to all of this. He's a funnier character than we've ever had before. If we get Kite Man working, then everything will work. He's the key to all of it, literally.
Exactly. But he's going to turn out to be Mr. Oz at the end of the day.
Oh, no. Here's another funny thing you might have noticed. When Joker is giving his very Charles Foster Kane speech to only Kite Man, you see behind him he has, like, a number of, like, posters that he's put together that are like, Joker, I want you, really well done.
I saw
all I could think is, like, did Joker take over a Kinko's and force someone at gunpoint to make those? Those are really well put together. Who's the graphic designer he kidnapped?
Right. It's also like, okay, if he didn't go and do it, who out of his, like, crew did he send?
Yeah, I know, right?
Like, did he send Scarface?
I know, right?
With his little flash drive. Hey. We're going to need, like, 50 copies. We're
gonna need 100 on goldenrod.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we're going to full color one side. We're going to want at least a gloss finish on some of these. We're looking at 11 by 17 and also 24 by 36. Yeah, we'll just mix and match from there. And they're, like, just looking, like, who do I talk to? The puppet or the...
Or the guide. Don't look at the guide, look at the puppet.
Don't always look at the puppet. Okay, I'm looking at the puppet.
Dude, I do not want to die. I'm looking at the puppet. It also hit me, too, that, like, this whole story, this whole summer-long event, too, is still just Bruce Wayne regaling this story to Catwoman. So I can imagine Selina sitting there, like, smoking post-coitus and everything. You know, they've ordered a pizza. And she's like, okay, Bruce, that was a good story and everything. But why did you stop every 15 minutes and tell me a story about Kite Man?
That's exactly it. Like, who is this part of the tale being told to? Maybe this is just Kite Man's version of what happened during this whole thing. I guess. I don't know. I'm weirdly more interested in how this is going to end than ever before because of, like, I'm just like, all right, fine. What now?
Yeah, because, like, here's the thing. Like, I wasn't feeling it for the most part. I liked this one more than I liked pretty much any other issue because it actually buckled down and answered some questions. Mm-hmm. But I still flipped the table because I'm like, this is not an interlude. You're calling it an interlude. This is very important. All of this is important.
Yeah, no, it's very true. And like I said,
an interlude would imply you could skip it.
Yeah, no, it's true, but I think its strength again comes from this just being something that Tom King's very good at doing in particular. You know what I mean? Not that he's not good at telling other stories, but like for me this is like the pinnacle of what he does. Is he takes a character that is just like, whatever, and then there's like, no, you're going to care about them because I'm going to make you care about them.
Hell yeah.
That's where we're going to end our discussion on Batman 30, and actually where we're going to end the show.
You know, I met Tom King at Fan Expo. Sal was walking somewhere else in Artist Alley. I actually got to talk to Tom King. Very nice man. I talked about how much I loved Mr. Miracle. I loved the All-Father scene on the beach, and I'm like, yeah, you were going for like and this was the year's All-Father was carrying me thing, right? He's like, yep, that's what I was going for. That was the joke.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, like... Oh, hang on one second. I want to say thank you so much to the Red Samurai for a super chat. It says, I wish they would cast more anime actors for DC shows, like Chris Sabat, who plays Vegeta and Piccolo, as Batman, and Dave Wittenberg, who plays Kakashi Hatake as Superman.
That's a good cast for an anime DC universe. I could see those two.
Right? I gotta tell you, like, anime voice acting has come so far. To not start drawing from that pool is like it's just a sin. I mean, like, we saw at least a little bit of it in like certain shows like Avatar: The Last Airbender, where they started to pull from that because at least they had that influence. But I think that's a very good call, definitely.
What about Canadian Brad Swaley? Can he have a role in this show, Red Samurai? I love that he's made a career out of the one voice. I respect the shit out of him. It's like, hey, Rock from Black Lagoon sounds exactly like your Death Note character sounds exactly like all your other characters.
Can I tell you, every time, because I know it's not true, but every time I think of Canadian voice actors, you know what I think of. I just think of the X-Men cartoon show.
I know, eh?
But no, I agree. Tom King seems like a very nice man. Tom, I don't know where you're going with this whole Wojar thing, but we're still going to talk about it, I guess.
Yeah.
It's gonna
one
keep
way
happening.
or another.
Exactly. It's going to happen. But that's pretty much it, guys. That was the comics that we read this week. Certainly there were many other books that came out, and hopefully you guys have gone out, picked up your books, started reading them. Hopefully you like them. I don't know. Yeah. It's important to like what you're reading, I got to tell you, at the end of the day. Before I end, I do want to answer a comment there. Yes, he did, and thank you so much. Nestmaster80 asked if Sal gave me the gift that he gave him at Fan Expo for me, which he did. I
was there.
Yes, it's the variant cover, the Spawn variant cover for God Country. I've been looking for it. I'm super excited. Thank you so much. I absolutely love
Between
it.
that and the other gift he got, you're like, Jesus, Sal, you're killing this good boyfriend game over here, man. You're like 10 on 10, knocking it out of the park.
Finally, ear to ear getting that book. So awesome. I love it. Thank you. I honestly, like, I don't normally do this, but I think I'm going to actually, like, get a frame for it and, like, put it up because, like, I want it to be out and not just in a box, essentially. So I think I got to find something to put that in. But thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. Don't forget, if you want to hang out with us more outside of the show, you can go over to Twitter at Cape Joel. You can talk with Joel over there, chat it up with him. Over on Twitter, I'm at The Real Zoobs. But we'll be back on Thursday to talk more about comics with you guys, what we read, what's coming out, all the fun stuff.
My phone is ringing.
Oh, and Joel's phone is ringing, so he's going to have to go. But I'm going to close out the show. Now it's the me show. Yeah. No, we're just gonna go. But don't forget, on Tuesdays over on Eligible Monster, the weekly poll comes out, which is the discussion show about news, pop culture, all kinds of comic book topics that come out and all that stuff. But again, Thursdays right here, hanging out with us, talking about comics, good, bad, all of it. Hey, I stalled long enough for Joel to come back. So have a great weekend. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.